Hey guys, so I just went and saw Civil War, and I'm just going to say right off the bat, this was incredible. I can't remember the last time I was so impressed by a movie, and it's one of those movies that stays with you after you leave the cinema and really makes you think. So I wasn't sure what to expect when it came to the politics. Let's be honest, this is a movie that at the moment the world is so divided and it feels like it could have added more fuel to the fire, which is already a blazing inferno. We don't need that. And instead, it seems to hold up a mirror to American society and serve as a cautionary tale to be like, hey, this is where you could be headed if you're not careful. And I thought it would probably go down like that movie The Hunt, where it focuses on making fun of both sides, Republicans and Democrats, but instead, it doesn't really even go in that direction. Like, you do see different groups of people who are pretty obviously one or another. Like, it's easy to tell who they're meant to symbolize. But at the same time, the movie never really dwells on that. It doesn't put too much emphasis on that. It's never really talked about. You never even hear the words Republican or Democrat or anything like that, because that's not the point. It's not about that. It's not about picking a side. It's not about how the war got started. It's about now, the journey. Now they're here, getting through it and surviving. And I really appreciated that. I mean, this movie could have so easily gone in that direction of capitalizing on the unrest leading up to the election, and instead it didn't do that. And there really isn't any political commentary at all when it comes to sides, like I said. Like, there just isn't any of that. It's really just focused on the aftermath of look how far we've fallen. So I feel like the sound design was really good. There were moments where it really showed what it would be like if a bomb went off, and you lose your hearing for a bit, obviously, and it really reflected that well through the sound. And it just added to the tension and suspense so well. And there was a lot of tension. Cinematography wise, it was absolutely incredible. I was really, really impressed by the visuals of this movie. It really reflected the A24 style. And I really wasn't sure how A24 would do a war movie, because that's, generally not what they deal with. But they did a really good job of bringing that A24 sort of flair and style while staying true to what the movie is meant to be. I feel like the world that they created was so immersive and gritty and based in a sense of reality. Like, you could really feel like this is a world that could actually exist. And it didn't feel like a typical action popcorn movie. Not saying that action movies can't have that element to them, but this just felt very A24. It did such a good job with just feeling like it was grounded in reality. The acting was good, and I know I've probably said this before, but I was just really impressed how it wasn't all explosions. It was more like there was the gunfire and the bombs going off, but it was more about the after effects of the war and the consequences. It would have been so easy for them to make a movie about the Civil War that was just like Independence Day. No shade to Independence Day. I love that movie, but it's more about the effects of the war, and it just feels so immersive and real. So our protagonists for the movie are actually four members of the press, and I liked that spin on it, how they were putting emphasis on the problem being the press, because they're ultimately not really reflected that well. I mean, we do see moments of genuine kindness where they put their lives on the line for each other, but those moments are fleeting. Overall, we see them acting like vultures, just, picking on carcasses. Like, that's how I felt watching this. And ultimately, it seems like their ambition and cruelty won out in the end. Like, we have Kirsten Dunst. Her character is this seasoned, hardened war photographer. And then there's this younger girl who she takes on as like a mentor, unwillingly at first, but ultimately they do seem to strike up this sort of, I wouldn't say friendship, but you know, she's looking out for her, sort of like a mother hen looking out for her baby. Like, she's protective. And there's this moment I thought was really powerful and clever where the young girl says to her, if I was to die, would you take my photo? And, you know, Kirsten Dunst's character, whose name I forget, but yeah, she says, what do you think? Like, obviously meaning yes. And then later on in the end of the movie, Kirsten Dunst's character is the one who is ultimately killed. And we see the young girl taking her photo, no emotion on her face. And one of the other press the guy in the group. So there were two guys, one dies, and the other one, they get to their journey's ultimate destination, which is the White House, because they were ultimately trying to get an interview with the president. And we see the president is about to be executed. He's on the ground. He has all the guns aimed at his face. And this guy, this journalist, just casually walks up to him and says, can I get a quote? Like, the guy is surrendering while about to get executed while he's surrendering. And it just does a really good job of showing how cruel and just corrupted journalism has gotten these days. And one of the journalists said, journalists aren't meant to have a stake in it. They're just meant to report. And I laughed out loud, like, yeah, that does not happen. At least not these days. But yeah, this was a very thoughtful, character-driven movie. So I like that it showed that characters don't need to be likable to be interesting protagonists, and ultimately they were definitely not likable, but they were very interesting characters. I like that the movie showed both sides capable of extreme cruelty, and yeah, it was a pretty fair, accurate depiction of what would probably happen in a civil war in America. So I was really impressed with this movie. I definitely think it's one to go see in the cinema. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10. So if you've seen it, let me know what you think down below. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff.